Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever and wherever you are. On this week's episode of Greetings From, we cover a lot of news from Google Stadia, Apple Arcade, PlayStation, and a bunch of game releases. On top of that, more corporate layoffs in the game industry. And finally, we touch a little bit on Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. All that and more on this week's episode of Greetings From.
Greetings, travelers. It is March 31st, 2019, and this is episode 12, if you can believe it, of the Greetings From podcast. My name is Rebecca Faye, and as always, I am joined by my two very good friends. First, she was an outlaw in 1899, and she's still one in 1999, aren't you, Miss Olivia Quinn?
So in Advent Children, when Cloud has the 5 swords and they become one Buster Sword, how does that work? How do they become one sword? It doesn't make any sense. I think that's my only problem with Advent Children. It's a perfect movie besides that.
I think it's the power of anime, and you're not supposed to question it. I'm pretty sure that that's how those rules work. I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Do you remember when they're all just throwing Cloud into the sky and he's getting a super powerful sword stabby thing? I think that's the movie. It's been 10 years since I've seen it. And they're somehow just throwing him into the air. The movie's fucking amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
And so bad.
Mm-hmm. That was a movie that happened that I also don't think I've seen in the last 10 years. So telling you, all I remember is that scene where a cell phone works underwater. And I think that's really all you need to know about Advent Children. I'm joined as well by my other very good friend, and probably not an Advent Children enthusiast, who just returned from a perilous journey on the Untersee to commune with Kos, or some say Cosm. Actually, I think you were on a very nice spring break cruise, so welcome back. It's Mr. Tyler Smith!
In the Navy. Yes, you can sail the 7 seas. In the Navy.
In the Navy.
Yeah, you can put your mind at ease in the Navy. Yes, I did go on a cruise. It was very luxurious. Luxurious. And I had a great fun time. I went to the Caribbean, sailed to Costa Maya, Cozumel, and Grand Cayman.
Nice.
And there was plenty of drinks abound, although they cost quite a fortune. Because they didn't include drink packages, or drink packages weren't included on this trip, so I had to pay for drinks out of pocket. But thank God, bless the loose bartenders on the ship who didn't pre-measure pour, and thank God they gave me literally 3/4 of a glass every time I came up there of vodka plus whatever I was mixing in with it. So
wow,
I know, and that never happens ever. So. I am very thankful for them, and yes, good to be back. I missed so much.
Do the drinks have little umbrellas in them?
You know what? No. This was an upscale cruise.
Oh, it's upscale. Got it.
Yeah, it was upscale.
Oh, it was too upscale for little umbrellas. How dare you?
I don't know about that. Okay, because so first of all, this cruise, this ship was so anti-straw. They gave us paper straws, and
that's good though.
It's environmental. You saved the sea turtles while you were sailing with the sea turtles.
I mean, okay, that's okay. Yes, save the sea turtles. I get it, but also cutting out straws from the recycling and throwing your own straws away isn't really actually going to save anything. You have to look at the things at a global scale here. So
all I'm hearing is that Tyler hates sea turtles at this point.
You know what? I really need a straw to drink. Okay, if I have to drink, it gets with from the glass itself. It gets in my mustache and then licking my face, and I look weird. And it's what are you doing? And I'm just trying to get the last droplets of the vodka that's left in my mustache. So I really need a straw. And the paper straws, they break down within 30 seconds, and you're just oh no.
The paper straws actually suck. Every time I've had a paper straw, it's always been I'm trying to drink this, and it just dissolves into my drink, which ain't great.
I know.
Yeah.
Listen,
some places are switching to metal straws, which I think is
but that's also a little annoying because you have to then carry your own metal straw with you everywhere you go. So it's the old saying is check your wallets when you're leaving the house. You need your wallet, your keys, and like your glasses. Well, now it's your wallet, your keys, your glasses, and your metal straw. Like,
this is our sustainable future, Tyler.
This is
wallet,
not,
keys, gas
please,
mask, sustainable straw.
Save the environment
shopping
in a
bag.
different way. I need my straws. I need my plastic straws, guys. I really do. Anyway,
I'm excited for our side podcast, Straw Talk. Do we
Straw Talk?
Do we hate the environment / sea turtles? Yes, we do. And that's the entire episode.
We're working on a definitive
really
ranking of straws.
Oh.
Yes. Yes, they do, Tyler. Yes, they do.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure so I didn't order anything. Yeah, it was very simple. Us gays are very simple. We do vodka Sprite or vodka soda. It's a vodka something clear. You don't do anything like no screwdrivers or, you can do Bloody Marys. It's fine because that's like, breakfast. But
this is like, I didn't realize it was so economical and thoughtfully planned.
Because if
drinking.
you're doing, the thing is, okay, when you're gay and you're on a ship and you're drinking all day long, okay, you don't want to like be bogged down with super sugary mixers like orange juice and soda. Like, you don't want to do a Jack and Coke all day long. Or maybe you do. I don't know. You're that kind of person. It's fine. But I feel like, after some point, you hit this wall and you're like, oh, the soda is really just the sugar is taking over my body. And then, you're done for the rest of the night. And instead, you try to do the vodka soda or like the vodka, like, seltzer, whatever, tonic, the bubbles. That's all you want. You just want carbonation in your drink because it doesn't taste awful. Because vodka's not great. Anyway, so you do that instead of instead of pina coladas or mojitos or I don't know, dark and stormy, which are all fantastic, fucking delicious ass drinks, and on the ships especially, like they are made like just the best drinks I've ever had have been on a cruise when they've like the specialty drinks. If you go to a bar and you're like, I want a mojito, the bartender like slaps you across the face and says, no, we serve alcohol here, sir. We do not give you that. Anyway, because it's really, really, one, time consuming and then two, difficult to make. It involves a lot of ingredients, a lot of shaking, stirring, and like all this other stuff. So try not to do a mojito unless like a restaurant or whatever you're at offers it as like a signature drink. But anyway, you can probably have a straw. I have been on a cruise where they did put the straws on it. It was fantastic. My pina colada was delicious. But on this cruise in particular, they were very anti-straw, anti-umbrella, anti-anything that could fly off the ship and endanger the ocean itself. They even like sent out a thing, newsletters, like saying, don't bring your shampoo. Like, don't bring your fucking body shampoo, hair shampoo, no shampoo. Because we just use our shampoo because it's made for the ocean specifically. So that way it's not harming the waters. Anyway, so.
I'm glad you were compelled to save the sea turtles against your will.
Yeah.
Against my will.
You're forced to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Your mortal enemies. The sea turtles. Your nemesis.
Yes. Long ago. In ancient times. Anyway, I heard this was a video game podcast, and there was a lot of things that happened while I had no internet out on the ocean in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you took a hell of a week to take a spring break in which basically everything that mattered in games happened all in the same week somehow.
Apparently. Like it's GDC or something.
Yeah, like it's GDC or something. Not like anything was going on. It just was a totally normal week in March in which nothing else was happening at all. So we got a hell of a lot of announcements to talk about. Some good, some bad, some questionable, some maybe a little scary. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what you all think about them. First, let's start with something very nice and happy. There was a Nintendo Nindies Direct this week, where we got a lot of information about some of the games upcoming on the Nintendo Switch, of which the thing I'm assuming is perhaps the most important of all of them is that the Crypt of the Necrodancer team is making a friggin' Legend of Zelda game.
They are?
Which is like,
Yeah!
It's called Cadence of Hyrule, so somebody got the Zelda license. Like, that seems like a huge thing for
I feel like
the
that's
indie team in general.
expensive. Yeah.
Well, it seems like Nintendo's been more open to working with partners like Mario Rabbids with like Ubisoft, and also now we have like Cadence of Hyrule, which is that Necrodancer game.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're willing to take risks, and the music, like the remix to the Zelda's music, just sounds amazing. Like I just watched that trailer on repeat for a little bit because I was like, this music's so good. So I'm really excited that it's like getting into the hands because I can listen to Zelda music all day.
Oh, totally. I can't really even see it going to a better team. Like that's such an interesting franchise, I think, on its own, Necrodancer, and so I'm excited to see that with a Zelda context. You know what I mean? Especially because it seemed like it wasn't just like a Link focused experience. That sounds
Definitely.
very mean, but you know what I mean.
Well, and I'm happy that like Zelda's going to be a playable character, and I went back and played Necrodancer based on this information. So I did a stream where I was like, I'm going to check out Necrodancer, and that game is still so fucking good. And I want to fight a Lionel, and it's like cute little 2D, like the art style looks really adorable as well. Like the choo-choos look horrific but cute, so I think it's going to be a really fun game.
Yeah, it looks really cute. I have never played Crypt of the Necrodancer, but after watching that guy play it at GDQ this year and doing it on like the hardest possible difficulty ever,
which was amazing.
Yeah, that was super hypnotizing, and I had never really seen that game in action before. So this may be where I hop in. Brings everything together. We also got an announcement that Cuphead is coming to the Nintendo Switch. This is kind of part of that weird Xbox is sort of on Switch now thing that's been going on between Microsoft and Nintendo. So yeah, April 18th, we get Cuphead on the Switch, which I think is going to be really great. And maybe I'll actually finish it because I don't have to sit at my PC and play it.
Yay.
Yay.
I was playing some games on the Switch recently, and I was actually going back and finishing Splatoon 2, and I don't know if I love the Switch handheld for like precise controls. So I really have like concerns about going back and playing Cuphead on that. Do you guys have any feelings on like the Switch in mobile mode?
I think it would be, at least in my opinion, it was so it's not precision necessarily because it's still kind of a arcade style game that I think it would be okay. I don't know. I
guess I played Celeste I guess I played Celeste on the Switch, and that was fine. So probably it will probably work out.
So we'll see. I mean, if it's awful, then it's probably not going to be awful. But anyway, that's cool. I'm just glad it's going mobile in some regard. Rad, I believe, was also announced. That's the new Double Fine. I think this was this the team or the guy that did Headlander? I thought that was what I heard. But it's like a roguelike game with some skulls. I don't know. It looks kind of neat. I don't know, but
I'm excited for like
Double Fine.
The characters, like the way you like power up is like you're mutating because you're like getting like irradiated with like radiation, hence the rad. And I think like there was one like mutation where it's like you're like kind of like pooping out little like guys and that are following you around, and they actually have the same head as the character that pooped them out, which I thought was pretty funny. Like that game has a tone and a style to it that I'm really enjoying, and like I'm surprised that Bandai Namco is publishing this because I don't expect them to do American games really.
Yeah, although I do feel like they have more. This isn't. I'm trying to think because they're doing more partnerships with people like don't they have something going on with Devolver right now? I feel like they do. I could be making that up. But I feel like they're kind of appearing places that they weren't otherwise. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Olivia, were there any kind of, I know there was a ton of games announced, obviously, but were there any sort of standout things that you're looking forward to coming out?
Yeah, like Red Lantern, I think was one that kind of flew under my radar.
Yeah,
and
I had not heard of that one.
That sounds exotic or mysterious.
Your character is like doing the Iditarod. So like with a sled team, and like so you're based, it's kind of like a randomly generated game. So it's like you're doing the Iditarod, and it's like a survival thing. So you have to go get food and kind of navigate your way across like the Arctic tundra or whatever. But like in the trailer, there's a part where you're kind of like going with your dogs or whatever, and you get attacked by a bear, and then the bear kills your dogs, and that was horrific and saddening. No. Yeah, and it's like you just see, and it's all kind of like a, I don't know, it feels like a lot like it's not cell shaded exactly. But it seems like kind of... Go ahead.
The whole premise sort of, I mean, excluding the Iditarod part, but reminded me a lot of The Long Dark. I don't know why. That was just like the immediate thing I was thinking of, and maybe just because it's survival snow setting. That was, I don't know if it'll actually turn out like that, but that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
What it felt like.
I also, there is some kind of story there, because I realized that Ashley Birch is voicing the main character, like the voice of Aloy and Chloe from Life is Strange. Yeah. So it seems like they're going to have, like, it's not just going to be, you know, a roguelike kind of game that's randomly generated. There is going to be some kind of overall story that it's telling. And I think the trailer kind of conveys, like, it's like millennial problems in Iditarod. It's kind of my reading on it.
There's going to be a lot of Hellas out there in the frozen tundra.
God, yes. I would live for that.
Yeah.
Have anyone checked out NeoCab? I feel like that game has been getting around recently.
Yeah, and it's coming out this summer on the Switch too, so that's going to be big.
Seems kind of like right.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I like put it on my list of things to look out for, but it has been completely silent for the most part for a while now. So hopefully I'll have to check that out. I guess put it on my list of things to look at since I've been gone.
Creature in the Well also looks really weird. It's like a pinball game.
Yeah, they're doing some weird stuff. I like it.
Ooh, good.
It seems like people are really excited for My Friend Pedro, but I don't really like get it. Is anyone like super stoked for that game? We've seen that game, I think, quite a few times before this showing. It's like the one with the banana and you're like slow motion shooting things. It seems interesting, but I don't know if anyone's super excited about that game.
It doesn't, I don't know. I don't know if it feels fresh to me, but I think I maybe just kind of like, that's not a game I really like. Those kind of,
it's this game. Well, it just kind of seems like, God, who's the developer who just made... Well, I can't think of the developer now, and I'm sounding silly, but it seems like a different game that came out a while ago, like a long time ago, where it's basically just, you can slow down time and then shoot enemies. And
like Super Hot, kind of?
Well... Yeah, Super Hot's a good example. It wasn't what I was referencing, but yeah, I guess it's like Super Hot, but in 2D essentially, and it's just kind of like reskinned. Maybe it'll have some like wacky story as to why you're shooting all of these people with your banana gun or something. Who knows? Or I guess they're not really banana guns, but just a gun, and the bananas just seems to be something weird. Anyway, I'm here for weird games. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I guess it shouldn't be negative out of the gate. I'm hoping it's good. It just seems like for something, it does remind me of a lot of other games that we've seen before. So fingers crossed, it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm excited too to see that Overland is going to come to the Switch. Like,
Yay!
I've been really looking forward to that to finally release, and so I think it's coming to PS4 as well.
Yeah, it's coming. That's one piece of news I did keep up with. I did, because I'm in the Overland Discord group as well, and they were just like, hey everyone, it's everywhere. Overland is everywhere on all platforms. And I was like, oh, that's amazing, wonderful, can't wait.
I think that'll be good. I think that'll be a good fit for it, but then I also realize that I just want everything, unlike most people, I want everything to come out on the Switch, so I'm like, fine. A lot of Devolver stuff coming out on the Switch. A lot of Devolver stuff, like they announced Katana Zero is going to be on the Switch, and everything they've released so far this year, like Grease and Ape Out and everything, has been Switch. So they're very Switch focused, which is good. But yeah, hopefully that their catalog still looks good moving forward through the rest of the year. But we have a lot to look forward to, so that's nice. Especially because there's a lot of weird dead time in the summer, at least in terms of games coming out. So we'll have some cool Nindies to keep us occupied. So, in very weird corporate overlord news, Google Stadium, Google Sword and Shield, Google whatever. Everybody already made the Stevia joke, and that's like the most obvious joke, so I don't want to make it. But yeah, Google announced Stadia, which is it? I'm not really sure. It is their very weird game streaming service platform box.
Oh shit.
Service thing. Yeah, the scope of this thing is really something. Olivia, did you end up watching the actual stream when it was on?
I watched it after the fact. I actually,
okay.
Yeah, like YouTube auto recommended it to me. So I mean, like Google's always watching. They know they want to shove this in front of my face.
Yeah.
They heard we have a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, do you want to spread the good word of our corporate overlords?" Google?
Yeah. And it seems like a really strange thing where it'll be like, we're streaming a version of the game that's kind of like running locally on a Google server, and then you're actually kind of like streaming it, and then your inputs are going to be streamed back. So, like the Netflix for games or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't seem like they're going to have an actual box. It's just going to be based out of like a Chrome browser or a Chromecast, or you have to buy the controller, which will somehow hook up to your TV via Wi-Fi. And it seems like some of the specifics about how that's actually going to work are still kind of out there, which I kind of expected them to addressed, because that seems like the biggest question is like, okay, what's the payment structure going to be? And I know it was released at GDC, so they're kind of having a more like developer focused thing. But I feel like this news is already getting out there to like the public, and there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Sure. The second that they said that barring that this is how the technology has to work, but the second that they made that announcement that the controller had to be Wi-Fi, like it had to be hooked up to the network, was just kind of the point where I checked out. Like, I don't know, I would recommend following it if you don't already, but there is a very, very good Twitter account called Internet of Shit, which is basically just a collection of all the times that anything in the IoT network just goes wrong. Like, I couldn't get coffee this morning because my coffee maker was downloading an update from the Wi-Fi. And like, I just have that kind of in the back of my head anytime we're like, we're gonna do it through the Wi-Fi. Like, oh, you can't play Cuphead today because your controller needs to update. You know what I mean? I realize that's the future that we're all moving towards, but it is interesting. It is interesting to put the onus on how good your Wi-Fi is. Really,
yeah. And
rather than what kind of hardware you have.
I definitely feel like I have an adversarial relationship with my ISP, and like my internet does go down quite a bit, or like I'm like my speeds fluctuate a lot, and like, you know, doing streaming and stuff like that, it's important to keep an eye on that stuff. And it's really fucking infuriating when like your internet goes down or something happens, and like to have all of your like accounts tied to the cloud and not being able to play a game or something like that because you lose internet connection sounds like a recipe for frustration to me.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's like, maybe it would be something that would work out pretty reasonably well for something that is, you know, you're streaming a game like, I think the example that they gave was like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. For something like that where it's like, it's a single player game, I'm sitting here, I'm playing it, whatever. But when it gets to like, you're streaming a multiplayer game, which is also streaming itself because it's in the cloud, you know what I mean? I think that's where stuff maybe, like, I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work out.
Right.
Obviously, it may be fine. I don't know.
See, when it comes to multiplayer, I think that's actually where I feel the most comfortable with it being streaming, because I'm already like, you know, connecting to Destiny, and it's like, well, if that game doesn't exist when it's not connected to the servers, or like World of Warcraft. So I do think they have, like, there are some cool ideas that are also terrifying, like the security measures in place where it's like, well, since you're kind of just, your client doesn't actually have any game files on it, it's like there's really no way to cheat, which is like kind of cool, because then your game will never have cheaters, but also that means mods are not ever going to be possible because they'll never have the client files.
Right.
So that's kind of terrifying.
As we've seen with, you know, every Bethesda game ever, mods really make the games.
Yeah, and even like for preservation or like any other, like, you don't actually own this ever. And I think that's a question I have about, like, how is the ownership, like, or how is the payment structure going to work? Like, I don't know if it's officially been announced that you can either buy games or get a subscription service, but, you know, you don't own it. And Google has a really bad habit of destroying services that people are using. Like, as a former Google Inbox user, that service is no longer available, and I'm really bummed out about it.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen, I think, how this will actually function in the long term. I'm definitely with you guys in terms of, and maybe this makes me kind of like, I don't know, a old geezer, I guess, but I still have an affinity for the physical hardware. Like, knowing that even, you know, going to the store and purchasing a disc, I'm just buying something that's going to eventually rot and not work. Like, I know that, but it still is sort of a sense of ownership. You know what I mean? Like, even if they said, hey, this game is, where it's not going to exist anymore, you can't buy it, whatever, I still have a copy of it. I could still put it in my Xbox or my PlayStation, whatever. I could still play it. And so, you know, obviously this line has been treaded really weird with things like Steam. Like, remember when Alan Wake went down because of the music licenses expired, and then suddenly it was like, well, get Alan Wake while you can, because you can't anymore, maybe. And then all the Telltale games were going down, and it became a really big question of, what does it mean to actually own something that you buy digitally? And so that obviously is only complicated more when not only do you own it digitally, but like it just lives in a server somewhere that you can only access through like a TV app, which feels like a second degree of separation.
Right.
I do. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, your fears are founded, though. Like, when I think about the Wii, like, the WiiWare shop going down, and, like, that's not that long ago that Wiis were still active. Like, Xbox 360 games are still available to download, but, like, that whole, like, subcategory of, like, software and games are no longer available on an official service. And, like, you know, that was only a couple years ago, so I do think that, like, we're going to lose these things. You don't actually own them ever.
Right. Oh, totally. Um, the the one thing I think is interesting about this whole announcement, and this was sort of a hot take, I think, done by the media, so it's not like it's revolutionary, but a lot of people were sort of positioning this as not really like the future of gaming, but I think they were calling it the future of YouTube, right? Because they have this idea of this integration of, I'm on YouTube, I'm watching a streamer play a game, and then I can say, I want to pick up right where that streamer left off. I could buy the game and download like a special save file that would allow me to pick up right from where that streamer was playing. I would have the ability to say to Google, hey, I'm stuck on this level, and it would just bring up automatically a video tutorial on YouTube of wherever I was stuck in that game. Like, I get that sounds really cool, but I can tell that it's Google investing a lot into YouTube, but I wonder what the longevity of that's going to be against things like Twitch. Like YouTube had YouTube Red, and I don't like that was getting bundled with stuff because I think no one was buying it. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Well, and I think it's really the idea that like they showed their like kind of save state system where it's like you could have a link, like just literally URL, open it, and it can jump right to the state that game was in, which I think is really cool to have like we're all gonna have this shared save file that could, actually be like the daily challenge kind of thing that we currently have in some games. And I think that's a really neat idea, and be able to share that really quickly without any barriers is cool. But like you're saying, Google hasn't been the best like warden of YouTube not radicalizing people or like, spreading white nationalist content. And like, I don't really trust them to, make a service like to take over the entire game space in the same way that YouTube has taken over all of like online streaming. That's not Netflix.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the thing probably that kind of eats at me the most is probably just that inevitably, because I think Google talked a little bit about working with certain developers. They didn't really name names, but I'm wondering if eventually we're going to see stuff that's Stadia exclusive. And then, it gets like we're drawing these lines a lot more now because of like with the Epic Game Store, and we're starting to see things that are only coming out there and not on Steam. And, the competition is good, but then I don't know. Having another hat in the ring is not always a bad thing, but in the long run, I don't know if it will actually be the most consumer-friendly thing, but I don't know. We tried this, I feel like, I don't know. When did the OnLive come out? Remember that service, right?
It was like 10 years ago, because I remember it being like back when I went to E3 that one time, OnLive was there, and I was just like, okay, so we've done this before. PlayStation Now has existed, which I think is actually an extension of OnLive or one of those other streaming services that Sony bought. But none of them are Google. Like, none of them have that wide reach and all of the data centers. So maybe it will be different. But I think we both tried PlayStation Now, and it wasn't like a great service, in my opinion. Like, it was functional, but it didn't feel like you were actually playing the game locally.
No, yeah, absolutely. The quality was not good, I thought. And every time my network went down, which is all the time, I got booted out of the game. And then that was a really frustrating way to sit and play something.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and especially the graphical pop-in as well, where it's like, oh, I'm going to play this. And it's like, oh, it's buffering. Oh, God. Okay, and now I can't even tell what's going on. And that's like, I think the Giant Bomb guys pointed this on their stream where it's like, they were watching the stream and the stream was hitching, and then Google was promising this like seamless experience where it's never going to be hitching. And it's like, you can't even do that with video consistently all the time 100%. How can you make that promise with games, especially with the way ISPs are, data caps, all that other like non-network neutrality stuff that's happening? So it's just it seems like a kind of pie in the sky dream, and I think Google could do this, but is it even good for us as a consumer base, as like for games in the future, which it's not, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say no. And it's too bad because they've kind of abandoned fiber, haven't they? Like, they pretty much abandoned the fiber project.
Well,
this would be a great thing to be like, this works great on fiber.
Definitely.
But they can't because it doesn't exist.
There was that whole issue here about fiber where it's like they kind of gave up. Like, it's in some Midwestern town. Yeah. Oh, do you know what it is?
Well, I don't remember what Midwestern town. I thought it was in like Oklahoma or something, or Kansas.
Weren't they like burying like lines, like fiber lines, and then they kind of were like, wait, never mind, we're not going to do this, and it totally like screwed up the roads, and like all of the fiber was coming out, and I'm like, oh, Google, like you're not committing to things.
Yeah, it's because it suddenly cost way too much money. It was like whoever at Google, thought of this plan or thought of the plan to make every fiber everywhere. They didn't realize that construction takes a lot of fucking money. You can't just dig a hole in the ground and then lay line of cable down. Like you have to rework the whole infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, and then they just basically dipped. They're like, no, it's going to cost us billions and billions and billions of dollars, which like they kind of looked at it like I feel like they looked at it at short term, in the short term, not the long term, because I feel like in the long run, they would have made a lot of money off of it. But for whatever reason, they shifted away from it. Who knows? This is all speculation, of course, because I'm not a Google insider, and I don't, it's just whatever Google does is what they do. There are overlords, and we accept whatever they do is, altruistically good. So,
yeah, I guess the only thing I wanted to finish off with this was that like Google works in like the billions. Like they're like, oh, we want a user base that's in the billions, and like even functional products like Hangouts, like that they're kind of killing that a lot of people are using, like formerly Google Chat, like Gmail Chat. It's like if it doesn't reach that critical mass, it's no longer important. And I wonder, like YouTube Red, like you were saying, Rebecca, like if this doesn't like kill out of the gate, like will this be around 5 years? I'm gonna say probably not.
Yeah. Not after the last, 10 years they've had they killed like literally like 3 services in the last like 6 months. So that's not really a good sign, especially services that people really liked. Although I think it's fair that they killed Google Plus because that was bad from the beginning and it was bad until the day it died. And it made even worse because of all of the problems they had with privacy. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It could be another OnLive. It could be another Ouya. And then, in our 5-year podcast down the line, I could be like, hey, guess what I found at a Goodwill? It's a Stadia controller.
Right. It's either going to be like the future of everything or it's going to crash and burn and explode. That's where I'm at on this.
Yeah. I mean, there's a really lazy part of me that's like, I love having stuff on my Switch because I can sit in bed and just play on my Switch. But like, what if I could just plug a Chromecast into my TV and then never move? And then it just becomes the future from WALL-E and we drink everything out of a cup and we sit in a chair forever.
Get your
we
eyes,
could go
become Google eyes. Get the Google Stadia eyes, and you just never have to leave. You can live in the Google world.
Oh my god. This is a fucking Dark Mirror episode.
Dark Mirror? Our knockoff Black Mirror podcast, Dark Mirror?
Dark Mirror!
The future of how all roads of gaming lead to some kind of dystopian.
Yeah, they fucking would.
Horrible.
Black Mirror would fucking do that shit. They kind of already have with. I can't believe when what was it called? That stupid Bandersnatch came out. Yeah, and everyone's like, "Is this a video game?" And I'm like, "No, bitch, it's a fucking choose your own adventure." Like, what? Come on, it's a book.
The bad thing is I just imagine, that meme it's like an anime clip and it's the guy and it's like, is this and it's like a butterfly or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Is this a video game? That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Everything's a video game. That's the secret. We've all been in the simulation this whole time. Google's radio. I don't know. In other corporate overlord news, Apple had a thing where they told us lots of stuff about the stuff that Apple's doing. Mostly a lot of stuff that maybe Apple shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? Every once in a while they get into something and I'm just like, I don't think that's an Apple thing.
What do they do? Tell me.
Well, one of the things that they did is they came out with the Apple Arcade, which is, guess what? Yet another video game subscription service. I'm sure you didn't have enough of those already, so how about you sign up for yet another one with Apple? The gist is essentially it's a monthly fee. You get games you get access to games, and you get access to games, even games that have like in-app purchases. You don't have those. There's no like timers of how long you can play. It's on all of the Apple services, so iPhone, iPad, Mac, TV, whatever, all that. And that's it. You can, instead of buying games, you can rent them, sort of, through
So
Apple.
it's more of a Microsoft, Xbox, what's it called? Not Xbox
Game Pass.
Live. It's like an Xbox Game Pass and not like...
Basically, yeah.
You're downloading it locally onto your device, so like...
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not streaming it like the Stadia, the Groki Stadia.
Video.
It does seem like a lot of these games that we've seen in other places, like the Don't Touch the Ground Lava game, like that's been announced for PC and other platforms. That one, like, kind of, it's like a music game with all like the rainbows and stuff like that. Like we saw that at a Microsoft event. God, I can't remember the name now, but these seem like a couple small games that Apple's like self-funded, and then a bunch of other stuff where people are like, oh, I can get this on the Apple service and get some more hits, get maybe a little more revenue, but it's not going to be exclusive to that service.
Yeah, like pretty much all roads I feel like lead to mobile in one way or another, like just even the fact that Cultist Simulator is coming out for iPhone and iPad and stuff like that. So I think it's fine. You know what I mean? Like I don't think this is bad. There are a lot of people who primarily game on their phones, and so for those people, you know, of that demographic of which they just need something mobile, I think this is probably great. And, you know, this isn't going to be like the hardcore gamer probably does not need the Apple Arcade subscription because they probably already own these games someplace else or whatever. I don't know. One thing I think is interesting to note about it is that compared to the Nintendo Nindies Direct, where everything, you know, most of the indies were coming out were from Devolver, a lot of the ones that were mentioned for the Apple Arcade were Annapurna, and I feel like those two, I don't know, I equate those two publishers in my head right now because they feel like they're kind of putting out very similar libraries, and so it was sort of interesting to see the split between, you know, a mobile versus kind of a Switch audience. I don't know.
Definitely. I think one cool thing about Apple embracing gaming, and I feel like this has been going on, like I feel like I've heard rumors about this for the last like 5 years about like when is Apple going to release their game service. It's been like whispered everywhere. So I'm happy it's finally done, so we can all stop like wondering about it. But I am excited that they're going to be adding like more controller support to like at least their Apple TVs, because I feel like I really would like a standardized something for controllers on phones. Because yes. I feel like there's something there. Like, I want a little Switch dock from a phone. That's where I imagine this all going. Is like you have your phone and you just kind of plug it into your TV or whatever, and it just goes. So that's my ideal future.
That I think is very relevant too because of, and we talked about this a little bit in our last podcast, but with Sony killing the Vita, they switched their remote play to an iPhone app, basically like a phone app. And so it turns your phone into the controller, and then the controller could work with the TV. So I think that's definitely there. Like that's where we can be.
Yeah.
So it'll be good. I don't know. I think it's fine. This doesn't make me feel as bad as some of the other stuff because isn't Apple getting into like credit cards now and like mortgages, and
aren't they doing TV as well? Like it seems like Apple's getting into like the content and also the finance industry, which are the two, you know, like everyone's pivoting to finance.
I can't claim this hot take as my own because I definitely read somebody posted on Twitter, but they had said something along the lines of like, I'm not going to trust the company that just deleted all of the MP3s on my PC with my financial information. And I had that happen too, and I really feel that.
One thing I've been seeing on Twitter a lot is like how payments will work, because you're not buying the individual games, you're paying for the subscription service. And it seems like it's based on how much, this is all like kind of hearsay from Twitter, but it seems like it's based on how much time a person spends in the game is how much of the revenue share is going to go to that developer. And I wonder if like Stadia is going to have the same kind of revenue share model if it is a subscription service, because it seems like that's going to impact how games are designed. And it's going to make them potentially be a more negative experience by like lengthening out things or adding more of a grind or, you know, making more addictive gameplay loops that aren't like really rewarding but are more abusive.
Yeah, that is weird. I shouldn't say, I don't mean the royal we, like we within this room of this podcast, but is there any reporting out there about the revenue share model for PlayStation Now and like games with gold and because I'm pretty sure I think that they talked about this on the Bombcast, but I'm pretty sure they had mentioned that the games with PlayStation Plus, so the PS Plus free games every month, the revenue share was given out based on how many people downloaded the game, but it was not related to how many people actually spent time in it. It was just whether or not that download triggered.
Because I remember that conversation on the Bombcast as well, where it's like that's why you actually have to buy those games, because they don't like it's based on how people actually make that transaction is the amount of money going to the person. So I'm not 100% sure if there's been any solid reporting on like, hey, how does that actually work? But that's definitely something I'm looking into in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think that could be really bad. And it feels like a very weird direction to veer into, especially since I feel like we just are now kind of sort of figuring out the revenue share model with digital storefronts. So like obviously Steam was the monolith for a really long time. And then now we have the Epic Game Store, which is a very significant developer-focused revenue split, and then even something like Itch, where you can choose how much goes to, like, how much you want to give to the devs versus Itch. I don't know. We're just now getting to the point where it's like, let us actually pay you fairly.
Yeah.
That I really worry about the idea that it's like, oh, you're only going to get paid based on how long someone spends in your, tutorial zone or whatever. Because, yeah, like you said, that could be really bad. Like, a lot of games already have too much bullshit in them. And I don't know if I really want games with more bullshit in them.
Definitely. Well, and like, what's the microtransaction route for this? Like, can you do microtransactions in like Stadia, for example, and have like a bunch of loot boxes in there? Like, I'm interested to see how these models develop. And like, we talk about the indie apocalypse. I think, Tyler, you were bringing that up a couple of episodes ago. But I feel like this only hastens the loss of control that indies had, like the minimal control. And Rebecca, like you're saying, it's like, okay, now we can just like bail on like the purchase model, and then just like all the indies are gonna be totally screwed. So hopefully it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, I think things will survive because I feel like there's enough markets and there's enough ways to get stuff out into the void that like not everybody is going to be screwed, but I think it's like class warfare almost. Like it just is going to really lengthen the divide between like the people that have money behind them and then the people that are just like scraping some shit together, the best that they can.
Definitely.
So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'll see.
Definitely going to be interested to see.
We'll see. I'm just interested to know how Apple's like inclusivity is going to work out, because if you're going to go with the Apple service, it's just going to be Apple. And right now, the only Apple thing I own, actually, that's not true. I was going to say the only thing I own is their phone, which I was about to switch over to an Android phone after having it for, 2 years or something, because I've always been a PC Android guy. I've never been an Apple person. But I did also just recently buy their Apple Pro, iPad Pro, because I, wanted to have a mobile or portable drawing device, and Wacom's Cintiqs are fucking $1 trillion, and Apple was just a better buy, I guess, in terms of that. So, anyway, I don't know how. It's going to be interesting to see how their gaming service plays out with other gaming services, because it sounds to me, or at least Apple has a history of having, interconnectivity only with their product. So if you own Apple, the Apple service might be wonderful and great for you. But if you don't own Apple, which majority of gamers I want to say don't, or like they don't have something that can play games on, because Apple's not primarily like a gaming thing, then it might not succeed as much as Apple thinks. But who knows, though? I don't know. There's a lot that we don't know about this. So
I agree, and I feel kind of like this service isn't designed for people who play a lot of video games. I think that Apple has its own distortion field where it's like once you're in, and I, having owned a MacBook and an iPhone, and I no longer own either of those things, but having lived in the Apple distortion field, I'm like, yeah, of course, I should buy everything Apple. And then coming out of it, I'm like, whoa, what just happened? I've come back to my senses a little bit. So I feel like people who are in like the Apple ecosystem are like, yeah, sure, take my money, dude. I'll get your free game. I'll get the games, whatever. And I don't think we're really part of that core market. Unless you are,Rebecca. I don't know if you're one of those Apple heads or whatever they're called.
Is that what they're called?
That's what they're called.
No, I have an iPhone. That's it. I just keep getting an iPhone. I don't really think too hard about it. I don't have a Mac. I have a PC. I don't know. The iPhone is just what I've used since I had a smartphone, and so I guess I just have sort of liked that my stuff just tends to stay in the same place. I will say, when I first got an iPhone, I was like in high school. Was I in high school? I think I was in high school. And I loved apps. Like, remember when apps were cool and like you could have like a lighter on your phone and you could have like a flashlight and stuff. It was like very early where there was maybe 4 games and one of them was Pocket God, but like everybody played it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this recently with a little bit of nostalgia, kind of while this Apple event was going on. But with a grain of salt, obviously, because that was a very weird time in the early iPhone life cycle. But I don't really play games on my phone anymore. Like, I use it as a productivity tool, and my calendar and my to-do list and all that stuff is in there. Camera, I guess. But I don't mind the idea of playing a couple more games on my phone. You know what I mean? Like, I think after Florence, especially, it kind of turned me around and was sort of like, yeah, I could get into this again, I think. Especially with stuff that's just really nice and easy to sit down and play in a bite-sized setting. I'm not really someone who wants to sit and play Candy Crush or, try to play a Fortnite or something on my phone. But I don't like, I don't mind it, I guess, if it gives another platform for interesting indie experiences that benefit from, you know, that mobile experience or the touch or the, you know, whatever the iPhone and can give. So to that end, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For me, I'm just thinking about like Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery and Year Walk and, you know,
oh man,
these games.
Year Walk's so good.
I know. Like
Yeah.
I saw, so I'm praying that this service produces games like those, and not just cash grabs or like, you know, Candy Saga 8,000 whatever, just basically pay to win games, or, you know. So
I actually don't feel bad about this. Like, I think it's going to be good. I think a lot of the stuff that's come to mobile has actually not been as bad as in the past. I think there's obviously still just junk everywhere you go, but like, I feel like Apple's really been pretty good about curating stuff for, you know what I mean? Like, at least them coming out and saying like, hey, we know there's a bunch of garbage on the App Store, but here's some stuff that you might like.
Right.
And I think they've been pretty good about curating those things.
And it seems like it's not going to be like, oh, here's our next free-to-play game, you know, because those are just going to live on the App Store. It'll be like bite-sized experiences, what I'm imagining you'll be able to get on in the subscription service.
Yeah. We'll see. Again, it could be awful but you know, all of these corporations are essentially running the entire world, so it could be terrible. I don't know. But I would be okay if they just made good games and didn't involve their finances with me at all.
Spoken like a true Applehead.
We need to change that. It's not true.
If I was an Applehead, I think I would have the Apple credit card, and there would be like, I don't know, an Apple mortgage.
Okay.
This is how I feel about Amazon. Like, go to your Prime house, Prime citizen. That's coming. Why hasn't Amazon released a streaming service?
It's coming. It's coming. Don't worry.
Twitch. Yeah. You know they're gonna do it, and you know it's gonna be about as dead as their fucking movie selection on there. It's gonna be awful. So.
Heyo.
Shots fired.
Although to be honest, to be fair, I've heard some very good things recently about the Prime Video, and they actually have some Prime series on there that are really good. So
they're pretty good. They're pretty good. It's not as good as, you know, like Netflix. It's not as good as maybe like an HBO Go or whatever, but it's okay. Like, it's okay.
I mean, their only point is to get you like to not cancel Amazon Prime. They're like, as long as it just seems like as it's enough value so you don't think about canceling, like it's just one more feather in their cap.
Basically.
So, yeah.
Google is about doing too much and Amazon's about doing just enough.
Exactly.
So we'll see how that pans out for everybody. So we have new game services. We got a new streaming bullshit. Well, guess who else had some stuff to talk about this week? You're right. It's your pal Sony. Sony did a PlayStation State of Play this week, which was just a real nice little stream where they just showed a bunch of games that are coming out. That was it. That was the whole thing. There wasn't a lot of bullshit. It was just a bunch of games. And, interestingly enough, a huge focus on the PSVR, which I think I was reading something that they've sold like 4 million VR headsets for PlayStation? I don't know.
Wow.
Something like that. Don't send in a correction, because I know I'm already probably wrong. But yeah, huge focus on VR. The biggest announcement to me was that No Man's Sky is getting PlayStation VR support over the summer. So I feel like that's kind of the way I always wanted to play that game anyway, and now they gave it to me, so I don't really know what else I have to offer this world, because I'm just going to go be in VR for the rest of my life. I don't know about y'all. But that looks really cool.
Yeah, more props to them for continuing to support No Man's Sky. Like, I know it had like a bad rap when it first launched. I know we've all talked about this game to death, but I'm just super excited that they continue to release stuff for free. Like, I think that's a really solid service for them to provide to us.
Yeah, they've really turned themselves into a very much a hero story, I feel like, just with everything that they did to make this what it was supposed to be. And I feel like they've gone above and beyond and even made it, like with this VR support, they've made it more than I ever expected to get from the outset. So, I'm really stoked for that.
Yeah, and I kind of expected them to like sell it. Like, I thought I'd be like, oh, this is our separate like SKU of the like similar to how Skyrim is, where it's like, oh, you can buy like the special edition or you can buy VR. And so I'm excited that they're including this in the base game. I think that there's like everybody's golf VR is one of the announcements
Yes.
here. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, it seems like everybody's golf kind of fell off the face of the earth. And I wish that like they kind of rolled it into one package because I think more people would go back to everybody's golf.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really, really cool. I never played Everybody's Golf, but the only thing about it that I know that means anything to me is the Monster Factory episode with the tiny mayor.
Definitely.
Golf. That was really the best thing that we could have ever asked for out of Everybody's Golf. So yeah, that'll be cool. There's also the Iron Man VR game, which I can't believe it actually took somebody this long to do an Iron Man VR game. Maybe because of licensing, but it just seems like an obvious VR thing. So yeah, now you can be Iron Man in VR. There's a Five Nights at Freddy's VR game now, so that's going to be a no from me, dog. And I mean, there's a bunch of other little games like Job Simulator. I don't know if you guys played that on any VR platform, but that game is adorable, and it's getting a sequel called Vacation Simulator. So I'm actually really excited for that to come out because it looks really cute. And the whole premise of Job Simulator was great, and it was really fun to play in VR. So I'm like, sure, I'm glad that they're supporting it and they're not putting it out to pasture like they did with the Vita. So keep it coming.
This was way more than I ever expected with the PlayStation VR. I kind of expected them to release it, get their cash, and then just leave it for dead. So I hope that I'm super stoked. I had a question for you guys. Do you think they'll continue to support the PlayStation VR with the next console? Do you think that will carry over, or do you think it'll be a entirely different thing? This all is predicated on backwards compatibility actually working, but I'm kind of interested to see if this platform continues.
That's a good question. It might. They might be able to pass it on because the VR system is its own component outside of the PlayStation. So it has its own extra processing box, and then it just gets plugged in repeatedly to the PS4 through a series of very confusing wire setups. And so theoretically, you might be able to do, I would think it would not be difficult for them to do the same with the PS5, and my hope would be that you wouldn't need the extra little processing box unless they drastically improve the fidelity of the PSVR camera or the viewfinder, I guess, because that would be my one criticism of it is it's a little
the screen door kind of effect, kind of.
Yeah, it's not bad, and it really depends on what you're playing, but there are certain things that it just is not made for, and it is a little vomit inducing because it's just kind of a weird effect.
Right.
I would like to say or think that if they were going to be rid of it, they would stop all development on it. And that by stopping developers for working on it. But then again, I also think, I don't know, because I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but I did catch that No Man's Sky is now doing a VR update, I think coming this summer, later this year. And I feel like, if PlayStation wasn't going to be bringing it over or continuing it, they would have stopped production or something. But then again, you would then Q2 Vita where they just let it die. So who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that since I feel like my personal theory is that the PlayStation 5 will be another half step similar to the PS Pro. So if it's the same kind of thing where it just kind of is a gradual evolution, that hopefully they'll have the PSVR 2, but it's still the games that worked on the previous console still work. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. This is all conjecture, I guess.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like they're planning to come out with a new VR headset anytime soon, at least. Maybe not this year, maybe the next couple of years, which makes me feel better about buying one. It's probably a good time to buy one, especially if there's still $200 bundles like they were over the holidays, because there really is a lot of good stuff. To me, it's a good time to get a VR. It's a good time to get into VR for PlayStation. There's just a lot of good games.
Well, and I think this sold me on it, and I'm going to get one because I've been meaning to play Resident Evil 7, and I think that's the ideal way to play that game is in the VR headset.
I'm gonna again. That's gonna be no from me, dog, because I couldn't even. The demo was really upsetting.
So I'm
I played
no from me.
As a person who played Soma and cried, and I'm still working through Soma. I'm like a masochist, and I'm gonna torture myself. I'm putting on that stupid VR headset and recording myself playing it. So that's the purpose here. It's to entertain others than to hurt myself.
I would recommend in that vein. Then I would recommend playing Until Dawn: Rush of Blood because it's sedentary roller coaster game where you shoot stuff off the side, like you're in it's like very arcadey, like you're in a Astro Blasters or the Toy Story Mania ride. I'm sorry that all of my references are Disney related, but that's kind of the gist of it. And so like it was scary, but you had power, and like I was able to get through that because I didn't feel as bad about it. It really has nothing to do with Until Dawn, except it uses the imagery.
Yeah.
And so if you want to see Rami Malek really up close, then you can play that game.
Did anyone pick up that From Software VR game? The Deracine? Yeah.
I have it, but I haven't gotten to play it yet.
I was gonna say
it's just like
it seemed...
you kind of wander around and you talk to ghosts.
Oh.
Well, you listen to ghosts.
So it's
I guess you're the
in no
ghost.
way, shape, or form kind of reminiscent of Bloodborne, because it seemed like one of the people you talked to is like a doll from Bloodborne. But who knows? Yeah,
it's not. It's really not. Like, vaguely the setting, kind of, but it has nothing to do with Bloodborne at all. It's just sort of Victorian-y.
I see.
It's not scary either. It's kind of gentle, I guess.
Yeah.
Huh. Not what I expected.
But it's like a sit and listen game, kind of. Like, you're like watching things kind of happen, like you're sort of eavesdropping and observing.
I'm glad that it's like the opposite of a walking simulator. It's like a sit and listen.
So that with VR, we're taking it back to the sit and listen sims, which is okay. I bring my I have a desk chair that I bring and sit in front of the computer, not the computer, the PlayStation, so I can like kind of turn back and forth in my chair when it's like a sit experience. I find that quite nice because my feeties get tired if I have to stand up and just watch people talk. So I know life's real hard for me. It's okay. On the PlayStation topic, just before we move on, am I the only one who's still not excited at all about Days Gone?
I don't understand why people are getting so excited about it. Like, it seems like there was a narrative on Twitter where people are like, Days Gone's pretty good. And I'm like, y'all, I don't see it. And I guess I haven't played the game, so I shouldn't prejudge people. Like, I think I'm trying to be more positive about all games, because I think every game deserves a chance, but something about Days Gone, just everything about it seems not great, in my opinion.
I think it maybe will be a fine game, but it would have been better suited if it came out like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like an old narrative, based on Jason Schreier's reporting about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this as well.
It's a video game. Yeah, it's like a video game-ass video game. Every video game thing that you can think of is in it. Like towers and collections and side quests and just all that junk.
I was listening to Split Screen, Talk with Split Screen, their podcast with Jason Schreier, and he was talking specifically about how like this hits all of the big things from 5 years ago. Like, it's got zombies, it's got bikers, it's got, an open world. There's like weird like fluid dynamics that are also the zombies, similar to that movie with Brad Pitt that I can't remember what it's called. DayZ, that's it.
Oh,
I think not it.
World War Z.
World War Z, yeah. So it's kind of just like this melting pot of all of these, and this is not an original thought, this is Jason Schreier's thought, but it's like a melting pot of everything that was like super popular 5 years ago, and I think that's a really good summation of that game.
I think the thing that really kind of ended it for me was, and not like I was ever super into it anyway, but when PlayStation came out with that story trailer, and it's like the main guy who is, what is his name? Deacon St. Clair or something like that.
It's a pretty good name.
Of course it is. It's just a video game name. Him at his wedding, and he's wearing a backwards baseball cap, and I just was like, man, really? Like, we really... This game, I think, should have come out 5 years ago. But, again, it could be really great, and it could be a huge revival of the zombie genre, but I'm actually ready for zombies to not be zombies anymore. I'm kind of done.
Yeah, I was fine with The Last of Us, because their zombies are... they're zombies, right? But it's just a little bit different take, and it's not necessarily focused all on the zombies, but this is... It's just tired. That's all it is tired.
Yeah. Oh well, we will see. That comes out next month, so we will see, I guess, what that looks like. In very recent, because I think this happened today, it did, but not positive at all news. It's been a really hard couple of months for the industry as a whole, because of so many layoffs have hit pretty much every company that there is, and EA now is reporting that they are laying off 350 people of its 9,000 person staff. And this is just like right after that they announced that they were not going to do an E3 presentation. I don't know. It seems a little worrisome. And I also really hate that a lot of these companies try to position this as somehow positive. You know what I mean? Like, this is actually going to be good for you, or we're making a lot of money, so this is fine. And then they lay off a ton of people. That's really uncool, and it makes me angry.
Definitely.
And I feel very badly for everyone who was laid off today, because that's awful.
The thing that kind of like gets to me is when it's framed as like, oh, we're not firing developers, we're firing like marketing. I think the exact quote in the Variety article I have here is like, we're firing marketing and publishing people and people who work in like international operations. And like, as if that's like their jobs were, you know, like not as important as like, hey, they're support staff, so whatever, it's fine. We just fired them.
Yeah.
We're still making games. And that's the part where I'm like, you know, these people still do critical roles at a company. Like, they weren't doing nothing. So
yeah. There was a narrative that arose I hate to even say the last time this happened, but when Activision laid off such a chunk of its staff, a lot of those people also were support staff, or they were in marketing roles, or, you know, non-development roles specifically. And there was a narrative that started on Twitter that I really appreciated, and that was this theory, or, well, not a theory, but it was this sort of messaging of, even if you did not develop a game, like even if you did not write the code, you did not do the art, you still are a game developer, because something that you did was part of getting this game to market, whether it was in merchandise, whether it was in, you know, marketing, translation, you know, public relations, the HR team, you know what I mean? Like, all of that stuff is still really critical to putting out a game. And so those people are still developers, and they should not be forgotten about when it comes to being a part of, you know, releasing a project as a whole. So
definitely,
like, I thought that was very nice, and it was good to see people rallying around that. And so I don't know if there's more that we can say about it other than unionize. Like, people keep saying unionize, so do it, because no one's ever gonna look out for you.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So, whew. Do you feel caught up, Tyler? Do you feel like you were actually here this week, and now you're like completely ready to just jump in, and you know all the news? And
definitely am caught up. I will have to just look at, you know, into it a little bit more to get specific details, and like, because I'm that kind of learner, you know, I have to totally see it to get into my head. But I'm totally caught up on things. I think you guys did a very good job of explaining to me what happened in the world of last week.
Perfect. Well, now we can put that week behind us, even though it's forever and it haunts us till our graves. And we can talk about something very important to all of us in some degree. A game came out last week. Game we've all been waiting for. Maybe just me and Tyler.
Yoshi's Woolly World. And I'm so excited about this, guys. I picked it up again.
Yes, I just got my amiibo. I'm fucking ready. Isn't it Yoshi's Crafted?
I realized after I opened my mouth, I realized I'd made a mistake. And I apologize.
I
joke will be struck from the record.
No, I was afraid that they had come out with a Yoshi Woolly World 2 and also Yoshi's Crafted Island Escape Detective Dream. I don't know. What is it called? Something.
Yoshi's Crafted World, right? That's the...
Hell yeah, there's another Yoshi game. And also there's another FromSoft game.
Oh, that one. That's what you guys want to talk about. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Sekiro Shadows Die Constantly. It's out, y'all.
It surely is.
It sure is. I'm super pumped. It's really nice to go back to a From world.
Yes.
Wow, this game's really different though, which is interesting. I like it.
Yeah, so I don't really want to get into spoilers of things. I mean, I want to talk about it, but I don't want to like be like, and then this happens, and then this happens. To be fair, I haven't gotten really far in the game. I have played maybe 3 or 4 hours of it. Rebecca, how much of this game have you played? Because you've had the entire weekend to play. I only had yesterday, being Monday, to play.
Well, I wasn't home most of last week, so I've played about as much as you have. I think we were at the same place also. And that's generally been the place, as far as I've seen, that pretty much anybody has covered. Although it does feel like people are pretty openly talking about a lot of the early game bosses. Maybe not as many of the late game ones, but like people are pretty openly talking about like Lady Butterfly and people like that. So I was like, okay, it's one of those again. But yeah, I think we're in the same spot because you're in the estates, so you've been in the memory.
Yes.
And you have like your skill trees opened up to you. You've done some light boss stuff. Have you beaten the first? Well, I guess he's a boss, right? He doesn't count as a mini boss because there's the mini boss and then there's a boss.
So where?
Or is he a boss or is he a mini boss? I'm not really sure how they categorize some of these because it's kind of vague.
Well, so it's okay. So this game, unlike other Souls, for people who don't know, FromSoft, their big franchise is the Souls series. That is Dark Souls, and then Bloodborne is kind of a spin-off. It's the same thing though. And what they have there are like maybe mini bosses, which are people who are like players and they're like that skilled. Like they have normal enemies which you the player can kill and are usually way better than the monsters. And then you have mini bosses, I'll call them, which are NPCs or monsters that are on par to your skill level. And then you have bosses like end game, or your typical boss that has a lot of health and like does crazy ass shit and and there's a lot stronger than you. This game, Sekiro, has like several tiers of challenges, I'll say, because you have your typical boss, which is like the monster or NPC that you have to kill to get bypassed, further on in the story. But then you have like these mid-range bosses, and some of them are easy and some of them are tough. Like some of them are just NPCs, but they're just a little bit tougher or more skilled than your regular NPCs or monsters, bad guys. But then you have like this is like a mini boss. So I don't know. It has like 3 or 4 different tiers of like ranges and bosses, and it's so confusing. I would say that this guy is like, mini boss.
Okay, that's fair.
Because he has 2 death blows, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't sure because he doesn't require the tool, but it's highly recommended you use the tool, and so I didn't know if that put him into a slightly higher tier than just hit it with your sword. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so that's where I got caught up or hung up on in the game, and that's when I had to like take a step back and like realize, okay, this isn't working. Like, let me just leave and go try to do something else, because in the other Souls game, what normally happens is when you die, yeah, you're penalized. You lose all of your souls, and you go hollow, which was just like a mini penalty, but it wasn't overall, affecting everything. The main thing was you lose your souls, and everything that you killed up until that point had reset, so you had to go kill it all again to get back to the same place where you died. And so in that sense, it was the Souls games were teaching you in a different way than Sekiro is trying to teach you combat and movesets. And I would say Sekiro is way more punishing in that regard because you have very little health, and these enemies do a ton of damage. Like you can get hit once or twice and you're dead. I think the boss that we're talking about, he can hit me once, and like I lose 3/4 of my health, and then like I don't really,
unless he throws you off the cliff.
Like he throws you off the cliff.
I got pretty much oblivion.
Oh my god,
thrown into the oblivion on that one. I deserved it.
So you don't in Sekiro, you don't really have that opportunity to take your time with learning the movesets with enemies because the combat is so fast. It's like FromSoft said, we have poise in Dark Souls, in our Dark Souls franchise, and it's a hidden mechanic. It's unseen. No one really knows what it does, but it's there, and it's just a meter that counts down to when you're staggered. And then they were like, oh, look at our Bloodborne franchise. We have that visceral attack, and the staggering of enemies, which is different from Dark Souls. And wouldn't it be neat if we took that and then took parrying as the core component? Because by golly, even though we've included parrying in our games, no one's fucking learned it yet. And then let's also make it really fast, like a fighting game. And that'll be Sekiro. And it's just it's everything that I'm bad at all in one game. And the learning curve is steep. And I think even you have to have a dexterity that's really, really high. I right now am in the house of I'm not going to recommend this game to anyone unless I know their gamer credentials, because it's just so much the difficulty of this game is so much higher than everything else. And I feel like if I recommend it just loosely, I'll upset a lot of people, for one, spending their money, and then two, not having a good time.
It's an interesting... I was thinking about this because you had kind of mentioned this earlier. Before, I would generally recommend to people who are interested in getting into the Souls kind of universe by starting with Bloodborne, because to me it was really tight. It felt like a kind of complete experience. It didn't have a lot of the bullshit that the early Dark Souls games had, with bonfires were not easy to get to, and it wasn't super friendly, and it was just kind of blah. And so to me, I always went to Bloodborne because the story is contained and you kind of get everything there, whatever. I feel a lot differently than you do. I actually feel like this would be the game, Sekiro would be the game that I would recommend to someone who has never played a Souls-like before.
Damn it!
Yeah, sorry. Now you can't play it, Olivia. I'm going to gatekeep you on this one. But to me, what has made this game difficult is thinking of it in terms of a traditional FromSoft game, because it does not want you to play it that way. It gives you a lot of tools, I shouldn't say a lot, but it gives you some really basic tools of you have your grappling hook, so you can get out of things where you usually could not in Bloodborne or in Dark Souls. You have some kind of trick, weapons that you have a little bit more access to than you did in Dark Souls or in Bloodborne if you had a trick weapon, for example. Mm-hmm. And the blocking is so specific, you know what I mean? You can block, you can deflect, they have special parrying moves that they really lean into that. So they give you, and they give you stealth too, which I think is really important. And so they give you the ability to control the battlefield in a way that you never got in Dark Souls. And so, to me...
So that's true. You're absolutely right. I will say that in terms of versatility, in the Dark Souls franchise, it was all... we want you to learn this certain way to defeat people, and it has to be this way. Either you can kind of vary in from it being your build or play style, but for the most part, this encounter is going to be this encounter. And with Sekiro, there's a lot more, like you said, movement and fluid to the combat system. But you were going to say?
That's why I think this is a good game for people that don't have the muscle memory of another From game. You know what I mean? Because you wanna play it that way, and that is really not the way it wants you to play it. And so, the biggest thing that I have struggled with in getting through this game and kind of learning it is that it really is a game about swordplay. You play games where you spend a lot of time, you just sort of stab something a bunch of times until it dies, or you shoot something a bunch of times until it dies. And that was true in Dark Souls 2. Just punch the butt. That's it. That's all you need to know. Just punch the butt. Good luck. And here that's not the case at all. Here you really are meant to fight things face to face. You really are meant to fight things one-on-one. And the blocking is so important because, it is about sword clashing. It's persistence. It's about, learning the moves and learning the timing and learning, the parries, which is the hard part, obviously. But it's weird to play a game that's actually about fighting with a sword, but in a kind of contest of arms sort of a way, and not just hit it until it's dead, or it just blocks you until you break its block and then it's dead. Right. You know what I mean? So it is a very different take, and I think that is the barrier to me. But that's why I wonder if someone who had never played Dark Souls or they'd never played Bloodborne, if they walked into this, if it would be a different experience, because they were thinking of it. They did not have the dodge roll R1, like R1 to R2, like that whole very consistent moveset that was very similar between Dark Souls and Bloodborne. I don't know. I really like it. I really love it.
I enjoy it a lot too. It's very, you can tell that it's definitely more of an action game, because it's just fluid in the way that it works. There was this one samurai game, it was a samurai game. It was made a long time ago, I think for the PS3 or the PS2. I really can't remember the name now. It eludes me. I'll figure it out later. And it feels like that.
Like a one-hit kill game? Is that the one you're thinking of? Like it's a fighting game?
It wasn't a fight. No, it's fine. It wasn't a fighting game. It was an RPG. It followed these 3 ninjas or samurai people. One was like the actual, samurai wielding sword guy who had 2 different swords he swung around. The other was like the second guy was a huge guy with like a battering ram, and then the third was this girl who used fans. And I don't remember what it was called.
You're unlocking something in my brain.
Yeah.
It was a really good game. It was early release, I believe, for the PS3. Like, it came with the PS3. And it was a really good game. It was definitely one of, like, it was, if I have to, like, say it was
Did it
like
have
something
giant
else.
Crabs?
I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember that part. I just remember them, like, running around in a fucking fiery dojo and, like, pseudo demons. If I had to equate it to another game, it has to be equated.
Samurai Warriors?
I mean, it might be Samurai Warriors, but I don't think it is, because that would be easy to remember.
Is it Onimusha?
Oh, Onimusha! That's what it was. I'm fairly certain. Anyway, so that game, it feels like that game, just with no combo system, and it's just very fluid. There's a lot of mobility in that in Sekiro, and that's it. And I don't know. I have to take my time with it, I guess. Right now, I'm just struggling. I'm at another part where I'm like struggling again, and I thankfully, like Rebecca, I believe you had said earlier before the podcast started, there's a guy who is essentially he's your dummy in the game. You can go and spar with him, I should say. And learn the movesets of things and how the mechanics of this world works. I haven't utilized them yet. I've just been going out and letting the world tell me how to improve. But I now realize I should probably go spar with him a bit and sharpen up my skills and learn how things work. Because right now I literally just button mash until I break them. Or like if I know for sure they're going to swing at me, then I'll deflect and hopefully get a... I think it usually ends up being a deflect, but it's not a true parry, and so it doesn't break their poise as much as it should. And so that's kind of how I'm going. I also really enjoy their introduction of stealth. I wish that you could stealth a little bit more. Although sometimes, to be fair, I like literally am right next to a guy and he doesn't notice me, so it is what it is, I suppose. I've run into a few bugs, I'll say, with the game. It's just with the AI tracking me, like they'll get stuck on a ledge and like won't know to jump down or anything, and it's really weird, even though like there's no barricade or anything.
That is prime From Software cheese material, honestly. Yeah.
So I was just like, okay. That's how I beat one like mini tier boss guy. It was a lot easier than it should have been, but so I'm enjoying it.
I'm interested to see. Yeah, I'm interested to see how you will feel a couple of hours in, or well, you're already a couple hours in, but more into it. Well,
because I've heard like people like 20 hours in, and I'm like, holy hell, there's a lot here. I've barely scratched the surface, and I felt like I've played this for eons.
Yeah, I don't know how long it is. Like, I feel like some people had said that they were hitting final boss at like 35 hours, so it might not be quite as long as. But the other thing too is I feel like a lot of From games are lengthened by how good you are at them or how easily you're able to learn them.
Yeah.
So like I know I have a very embarrassingly high number of hours in like Dark Souls 3 as an example.
Yeah.
Because I spent a lot of time playing that game.
So I'm looking at how long to beat, and people said the main story is 16 and a half hours. That's a lie.
That seems low compared to like what I've seen with other people.
Right. The main plus extras, which is probably the whole game, truly, is 29 and a half hours. Completionist is 47 and a half hours. That feels
This
like
seems closer to what
a
I've
lot
heard
closer.
from
Yeah.
people.
To be fair,
I wonder if the completionist includes getting like all of the skill tree upgrades.
Yeah, I don't know.
All of the collectibles.
I don't know. And of course, like, this is fresh. You know, this game came out not too long ago, so there hasn't been a lot of people. Like, I think, let's see here. It says 68 people have beat it, quote unquote, beat it. And 16 people have done replays, supposedly. So who knows? You know, these numbers might be a little skewed, and also this, you know, it includes. I'm assuming it includes, you know, PC. Looks like majority of this is PC, 64%, and the rest is 30% is PlayStation, and Xbox is 5%. Wow, a lot of Xbox people don't play this game. So with PC, you know, you can kind of cheat. I'm assuming sometimes, and who knows. So the Souls games in the past, Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 through 3, those took me at least 60 hours to beat. And, you know, I think I've said this before, but I spent at least 200 hours on each of those games, if not more. So, I'm sure it's quite it's going to be a lot longer than, you know, 16 hours. So,
I got some questions. As a person who is a complete outsider, am I free to ask some questions here to you guys about how?
Absolutely.
Okay, it looks really pretty compared to the other from games I've seen.
Yes.
Is that true? Mm-hmm. It's very pretty. The animation's really nice.
It's yeah. Well, some of the animation is the same. Like, you'll find the opening of a door. Like, I guess once you get it right. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. So the opening door animation is exactly the same, but yeah, it's a real nice snappy looking game. I think it helps that it's brighter too.
Yes, you can see everything.
It's in like the sun.
Yeah.
For once, it's not nighttime eternally.
And there's no like fog, or at least not yet. There's no fog obscuring everything. Wow,
I saw some fog in a video I watched of it. Like the same gray fog showed up in a video I was looking at, and I was like, yes, it's back. My next question is, jumping is good? Jumping is important in this game? It seems like a totally game changer.
You know, it's refreshing. I'm so used to being glued to the ground. I mean, like, technically, you know, like in Bloodborne, you could jump. It's jumping around, you know, back and forth, side to side. But for the most part, jumping vertically has been refreshing, because now I don't have to be stuck with those fucking pesky, you know, frames or walls, invisible walls, when I know I can just fucking, like, literally pull myself up a ledge. Thank you, FromSoft. Now I can just jump to my heart's delight.
Good.
And I can, like, triple jump because I'm a ninja. Ninja does ninja shit.
And no stamina bar? Is that correct?
No stamina bar.
And that's probably...
you can zip zoop around pretty much as you so please.
Do you guys like that change? Like, do you think that's a better... Like, does it feel more natural? Do you feel more empowered with no, like, limitations on that?
It's right for the kind of game that it is. You know what I mean? Because I think, you could run a super dex build in Bloodborne or in Dark Souls, and Bloodborne's combat is a lot faster than Dark Souls. It's a lot more zippy. And you can kind of see, in a way, how Sekiro is sort of the natural conclusion of, like, the Dark Souls sort of heavy combat to, like, zippy Bloodborne to just, like, I have a sword and that's it, bye. So I think it's nice. I think that is something that they give you that is in your favor, because, you know, in Dark Souls you had different tools but you also had different detractors. So, like, you had the stamina bar, so you couldn't, you know, hit stuff as well, and you had to really kind of micromanage your energy. Where in this one, it's like, this game is really fucking hard, and you have to learn the combat very expertly in order to get through it. But you can also just sort of run away.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So you could just be like, fuck it, bye. You know what I mean? If that's what you need in order to get through the section, or to run back and get, you know, an idol, or just to be like, I'm out, I can't play this right now, whatever.
Yeah, in the Souls game, the stamina bar was really like a, I akin it to like a rhythm. So it set you up into a rhythm with the combat, so you know that you have enough stamina to do like 2 strikes and like dodge away, and like that's basically what it was. And you step back in, 2 strikes, dodge away, 2 strikes, dodge away. That's the rhythm that stamina bar sets up based on, you know, your build and your play style, the weapons you're using. With this, since there is no stamina bar, it's just you unleashed. However, you being unleashed, you have to pay attention to the enemy's incoming attacks, because you can't block them always, and you can it all and it also heavily or really really helps if you are able to then parry those incoming attacks. And thankfully, FromSoft was like, okay, we know that people fucking hate parrying and can't do it in our main games, so in this game we're gonna increase the window of our parrying so that people can actually get it. However, that
Gotcha.
window is still very slim. So, or at least, I guess it's wider, it's more open than anything else that they've done so far, but it's still like you have to pay attention and like, deflect at the right moment when the whatever weapon lands on you. So it's been a challenge for me so far. But I've also just been able to, button mash my way to victory. So what does that say?
Right. Okay. And it doesn't seem like there's any like real gear system. Like you get different arms from what I can tell, but there's no like you're gonna equip different like swords and stuff. Is that right?
Well, yeah,
that's right.
So as far as we can tell, there's no fashion souls in this one.
I was trying to remember what that term was, and I kept thinking blood fashion, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. So I'm glad fashion souls was the right
think
one.
That's applicable. That's called episode 2 of the Bloodborne stream.
Yeah,
It's just blood fashion.
Blood fashion, okay.
I bet Yarnum would have blood fashion because they have blood everything else. Like they just really leaned into it. Like they knew it went too far, but by that point it was so far in that they were like, we're just going to keep going. So I'm pretty sure blood fashion would be a thing.
Fear the blood fashion.
Yeah. I hear the bloody rags are in this year. I don't know if it'll stay all season, but who knows? I'll switch it to a bloody top hat later. I don't know. But yeah, this time you play as a guy. Like there's a story and there's a character and you play as a character, and it's not like you can't create a horrible monstrosity, so there's no fashion.
Oh, what a bummer. To build on that, it seemed like there's a more straightforward story in this game compared to like Bloodborne, which as I've now known, it's like, hey, you're just fucking in this world, whatever, like figure it out. Whereas this game seems more like you're actually a person and you've got a thing to you got to defend the crown, you got to like do these things. Like how wacky is the story, or how like shrouded in mystery is it?
So first of all, I will tell you that Bloodborne does have a story. You'll find it. Just wait. It's just not told. It's told in the FromSoft way, where it's just people laughing at you and like you not really knowing what happened until it's over. But I will say it has a more cohesive story than Dark Souls, which just could be kind of all over the place, purposefully. But anyway, yeah. So this is a more contained narrative. It is shrouded in mystery, if only because your character is missing some memories. So there's some stuff that's happened, and he does not actually know. And so right now, the kind of general thing is people will say, well, don't you remember what happened that night? And he's just like, so no. And you have the ability to go back and play memories, which is you kind of playing through something that happened at a different time and place. And so pulling all of those pieces together to have an idea of kind of what happened and how you got to where you are right now, because there's where you pick up with your main character, all this stuff has already happened, and you're kind of following him from when he wakes up and when he has sort of regained his consciousness, and so you spend a lot of time kind of figuring out what else is going on here.
Gotcha.
But it is a more contained story. There's more sort of cutscenes, like more linear pieces. The lore is not delivered in item descriptions like it is in some of the other games, and there's like memory fragments that you can touch, and there'll be some conversations, and there's quite a bit of dialogue with the people back at your sort of home base. They have a lot to say about stuff, and so talking to them often will reveal pieces of the narrative, because a lot of them are important to the main story for various reasons, whether because they know certain people who are involved or they were involved themselves. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a story game.
And my last question is, what's the dragon rot? I'm sure that's a spoiler, but I keep hearing about that that good dragon rot.
So it is a little bit of a spoiler. Rebecca, you can talk about it. It happened to me.
It's early game, so I think it's fine. So okay. The biggest plot point, and this is a spoiler, but it really isn't, because it's called Shadows Die Twice for a reason. Essentially, you are this samurai. Ninja, not a samurai. You are this ninja who is working in the service of this sort of child lord. And what we know is that this child lord has a special bloodline that has kind of, I don't know if it's he doesn't necessarily have magical powers, but he has some kind of supernatural aura around him. And so he has blessed you with this power that he has, essentially. So he has marked you. And through his marking of you, you gain the ability to resurrect once upon dying. So you have to die twice, sort of. I'm doing quotations, but you can't see them. So the gist is you have to die twice, right? However, this concept of dying and sort of getting revived and coming back, the idea is that this comes with a price, right? The world is not going to be okay with you just like living and dying, and it's like totally fine, and you just keep coming back all the time. So the sequence of dying creates this energy in the universe, and it's called this dragon rot. So people start to get sick based on how many times that you are actually dying. So it's like a consequence for you having this special ability to resurrect, essentially. Right. So you can't really do anything about it. I mean, you can. That is part of the story, is doing something about it. But it also is just kind of it's just a consequence. Like, it's kind of there. So one of the mechanics is this thing called unforeseen aid. So every time that you die for real, so you've died, revived, and then died again, you are subject to losing half of your progress to the next skill point, and then half of the money, or is it half of the money, or a percentage of the money that you have on you, essentially. And you pick up the money from enemies, and you gain the skill points by killing stuff. So you don't really level up as much as you used to. You just are kind of building EXP up to another skill point, which you use to buy updates and stuff. And so unforeseen aid is this thing that basically says, at this time that you've revived, you are not going to lose your progress to the next skill point, and you're not going to lose all of that money because of this unforeseen aid that is preventing that from happening. So the more that dragon rot spreads in the world, the lower your percentage is of getting the unforeseen aid. It starts at 30%. That's the kind of max that you get, and it just goes down the more dragon rot that is spread.
Well, that's kind of cool. So, I like the idea of like other people paying the price, because then it actually feels like there are real stakes there. So
yeah, and it definitely puts the onus on you as part of the story to help them. Like, you can kind of interact with that, and figuring out what that is, and how to save them, if you can save them, is definitely a big question. I have heard, I don't know if this is true because I have not experimented with it, but I heard that it is only the full death, so dying once, being revived, and dying again, that actually spreads it. So like, you can die and revive and then go reset at a I don't know why I want to call it a shridle. I'm sorry, a sculptor's idol. I'm just gonna make it shorter. You can go reset the world, and so you can just die and revive and run back as many times as you want, and that does not spread the rot. It's the actual die twice.
I saw a Twitter thread, and I didn't really understand it because I didn't know what dragon rot was, but it was saying that if you die and then revive at the sculptor's thing, that it just has a lower percentage of spreading the dragon rot. So
interesting.
It seemed like no matter how you died, from what, and I may be misappropriating that here, but it seemed like every death in the game had a chance of giving other people the dragon rot, which I didn't really understand at the time, so I may be wrong on this, but that was my read.
It may just be the percentage thing, and so you, depending on how you actually push forward, I don't know. I would be interested to see if there's like numbers on that mechanic, like if somebody ends up mining out, like, it's this percentage, if you do it is a big component of the story, and so I don't think you can actually really avoid it, even as much as you want to. Like, it's just kind of a thing that happens, so yeah. I wouldn't be... Some people, like, I feel like when some people found out about it, they were like, well, I can't play this game anymore because I don't want people to get sick, and it was sort of like, well... That's what's gonna happen. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It seems like pain and suffering are like a key component of like the thematic elements in a From game. So
yeah, I think this is perhaps the first time that you are the ones directly spreading it. You know what I mean? Or like that it's somehow tied to your actions, and so I think that is what makes it a little bit more of a difficult pill to swallow. Because in something like Bloodborne, you're like technically there to help, sort of. And in something like Dark Souls, it's kind of it's a bigger question than just the individual. So I think it's right. This game is more on a human level, which I think is very interesting. Like it tells a more personal story, which means that I have a question actually for you, Tyler. Are you playing with Japanese audio, or are you playing with English audio?
I really enjoyed when I started up the game, it was like, by the way, the default setting is Japanese voice, and I was like, all right, But then I was also like, well, if this is going to be like a Dark Souls game, I'm going to hear people like talking off in the distance, and I really want to hear what they're saying. And I was like, well, let's just put it on English because I want to make sure that, I hear everything correctly. And now that I'm playing the game, I realized that I could have totally done Japanese instead. But you know what? It's fine. I know that they kind of slip up a little bit, and they call him. So in the English version, they call him Wolf. In the Japanese version, he's called Shobimaru. That's wrong, completely wrong. But they call him his Japanese name.
Oh, Shinobi is just another word for a ninja.
Well,
that's
no,
all. They call him Wolf in the Japanese one.
Oh, do they call him Wolf? Well, I thought he was wielding the.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm thinking of the sword then. Because I thought the sword was like Wolf, whatever, 2. Night Wolf or something like that. I can't remember. I remember reading something like this back, when it was Sekiro had come out or was talked about initially. But right now I'm using English English dialogue. So everything is English right now. And it's basically the same FromSoft experience that you've experienced playing any of the Dark Souls or Bloodborne. So. What about you? Are you playing with the Japanese?
Yeah, I'm playing in Japanese. I don't know. It feels good. I like it in the Japanese. I will say that the English voice actor for Wolf, for the main character, is Charles from Red Dead Redemption 2.
Is.
So if you have any strong feelings about Charles, your boy.
I do like Charles, but subs, not dubs. Sorry.
I also feel that way too, sorry. It's not, like, it totally works. Like, I totally get your thought process too, Tyler. Like, I remember all of that ambient dialogue, but there is none. And there are opportunities to eavesdrop, but they are with button presses, so everything is delivered to you pretty good. So it's fine to play in Japanese, and I like it. The acting is very well done, and it kind of feels like you're playing like an old, I don't know, like an old kung fu movie or something. Yeah. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to play more.
We made it through our Sekiro Second.
Yeah, it was more like a Sekiro half an hour, but shadows die every 30 minutes. I don't know. That game.
We'll workshop it.
That joke. Yeah, that joke has worn itself out already, so it's okay. It came, it went, it's out there in the void. I can't get it back now. Someone has the dragon rot because of it, so I'm very sorry to that person. Would you all like to do some salutations?
Yes.
Sure.
Don't all get up at once, okay. So our salutations is when we give a shout out to some of the things that we're enjoying, whether it's games, movies, TV, clocks, whatever. It could be anything. Bread. We did bread once. I actually want to make some bread, and I think I said that then, and I'm going to say it again. I want to make some of my own bread because of Tyler's salutation from a couple weeks ago. So, Olivia, would you like to get us started with our salutations for episode 12?
Sure. Have you guys heard of RetroArch before?
Yes.
I have not. Please tell me.
So RetroArch is, okay, I'm going to fuck this up. I know it. It's a multi-core emulation system. So the emulators are not actually built into RetroArch, but RetroArch is like a front end that holds everything for the emulation service. So basically, what you can do, you launch RetroArch on your PC. It also works on like Raspberry Pis and like a forum called RetroPie. And when you open it, it'll actually have a list of like, hey, here's the different types of emulation cores you can use. And so you go in there and you're like, I want to play a Nintendo game. And there's like an NES core. There's like 10 NES cores. You download that. You load in your completely legally obtained ROM. And then you actually like can just play a game. And it's like the system, it's instead of having like 10 emulators installed, you have one program that has a little piece of every emulator in it, like the core software. And it's a really nice little front end to like play everything on. And especially because you can play it on a Raspberry Pi, like with the RetroPie, you can have a little like, you know, thing on your TV where it's like, I want to play, you know, a game. You just like pop it up there and you're good to go. I recently got back into RetroArch. They have a core for Dolphin, which is the GameCube / Wii emulator that I've been messing with. Yeah, because I've used Dolphin in the past and I really liked the standalone program, but I was like, cool, I can just have it be part of RetroArch. Like, while all the features are not there, I think the ease of use to just be like, I'm going to jump in and do this is like super cool. So I wanted to recommend everyone to go check out RetroArch. It's free, open source, like definitely worth your time looking at. And make sure you get your ROMs legally obtained. Always.
obviously. I would like to do more with emulation. The only thing I have ever played emulated through completely legal means is Chrono Trigger. I played it on my PC. Yeah, it seemed needlessly complex. Not the game, but just the trying to get the software to run, and like I had to run it in a certain way, and it was very frustrating, and I was like, why do people like doing this? So yeah, I would like to learn more about how to make it easier and not like that.
Maybe we can do it right. Let's do a RetroArch. Like, we should do a video about how to set up RetroArch the easy way, because I think that'd be a really fun thing, because I really think it's I know for me, it felt super overwhelming at first when I opened it up, but after I got my head around it and learned how to use it, it's like super not as overwhelming as it should be. And like, I definitely think the like having save states is a really cool feature. Being able to like play games like twice the speed is really neat. Like, there's a lot of like quality of life things for like, you know, I want to go check out the original Final Fantasy, and then like not having to put in 9,000 hours trying to, you know, like play it through traditionally, or like getting a patch ROM to play with. So there's lots of fun stuff there. Tyler, what is your... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just have to ask, what are you playing at 2 times the speed?
Mainly like RPGs that are gonna like old JRPGs that are gonna take like...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I was like,
I remember
holy
doing
shit, what
like,
on earth would be
Pokemon Red and Blue and playing it at 2 times the speed, because 1, you fucking go fast, and then 2, the battles like end in 30 seconds or less than that, 10 seconds, because you just, you know, press it again and again and again. Otherwise it takes like a minute because it's Pokemon. But, you know,
yeah,
I get the need for playing at 2 times speed.
Well, and I'm sorry, one more thing you just reminded me of is that it seems like archive.org has like, which is like a totally legit like archiving service for some reason, now has a bunch of ROMs hosted on there, and I'm like kind of amazed they haven't been taken down yet. But it's like, hey, download the entire like set of every NES ROM ever, which definitely isn't legal, and you probably shouldn't do it. But I'm like, wow, I'm surprised that Nintendo hasn't come and like killed you guys yet. So if you hear this, it might be a good idea to check those out, maybe, but not really because it's illegal. Tyler, what's your recommendation? What's your salutation?
Commit crime. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually think that was a salutation in the past. Was commit crimes and then be safe. Also.
From the cops. No, so since I went on my vacation, I actually have a video game for the first time in a long time to recommend. I had the opportunity to play, well, I played 2 games. I played Grease and finished it, and it was a beautiful game, but that's not my salutation. My salutation is going to be Mario and Mario plus Rabbids, the XCOM-like strategy game made by Ubisoft and Nintendo together. It's a really delightful game, and it's fun and silly in all the right ways. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel like it's fan service, and it doesn't feel like so dumb that it's like it's just dumb for no reason. And it's got like a cute little intro and intro sequence of explaining like why the Rabid universe is invading the Mario universe, and why like everything is all mishmashed together, which I think is pretty fun. I haven't played too far. Like, I'm like World 3, I think. So I haven't had like a lot of time with it, but what I've played so far has been really delightful, and I can totally see why people back in 2017 enjoyed the hell out of this game, because it's pretty fantastic. So that is my salutation this week. Have you guys played Mario Rabbids before?
I played a little bit of it, and I enjoyed that game a lot. It's like got way more charm than I expected. Like, I always thought the Rabbids were kind of like the least appealing thing in the world, and this game turned me around on that.
Because I've never played a Rabbid game in my entire life. Like, I've seen them, I know about them, I know they're like Ubisoft's mascot in a way, but like, I've never played a game with a Rabbid game. And I don't know, I just really like the game. I even like the way that I've never played XCOM either, so like I'm not, you know, I'm a tactical baby in this area, you know, and I really enjoy how simple they explain the mechanics of this game. It's really complex. Like, it can be really complex, but it's also as easy as you want it to be. And they do a pretty good job of explaining like all of the different ways that you can move your guys and perform attacks and like do different combos. So I think they did a really good job with it. And
yeah, I definitely think the intro, like their like kind of on ramp to like complexity is really, really cool. And then letting them, you can just like move forward even if you didn't like actually get an S rank or whatever is really neat. Like it kind of gives you something to shoot for.
That hasn't happened to me yet. I've gotten perfects across the board. Not to brag.
Oh no.
Not to brag. I had a lot of time on the plane, but also like I haven't yet encountered a thing or a level where it was like, oh, you didn't achieve a perfect score. So
La-di-da.
it's like you with your Bloodborne run and killing the cleric beast first try, no guides, no nothing.
Listen, I hear that Sekiro is going to be pretty easy, so you guys can just complain about the difficulty all you want. I'm just going to come in there and kick ass, so just giving you guys a heads up.
Rebecca, what's your citation this week?
So I am breaking with my usual tradition of recommending a game, and I am instead recommending Love, Death, and Robots, which is an 18-episode adult, I hate using that term when it comes to things like this, but mature, perhaps? That sounds worse. Animated series on Netflix.
Oh, really?
Essentially what it is it's 18 animated shorts that are between like 7 minutes and like 20 minutes long. It's very easy to sit down and watch all 18 of them. And they are all based on different short stories, all generally with the inclusion of love, death, and robots or some combination or two or three or whatever. It is something that I do have to say I recommend a little bit with a grain of salt. It is a little bit like I have some qualms with the way that it handles some subject matter because it's a lot of stories about women told from the perspective of men. And so there's quite a bit of like sexualization and some kind of very weird plot lines that aren't very realistic and don't maybe paint people 100% in the best way. But, it's a very interesting, I think, collection of shorts. And, you know, there are some that are amazing, just full stop, just totally amazing. There are some that are like good. There's some kind of, you know, ones, and then there's some that I would never want to watch ever again. So that you get a really big kind of range of content, and the animation on all of them is just stunning. So if you are interested in art in any stretch of the imagination, it is worth watching for that because each episode is animated very differently. Yeah, it's great. I'm still thinking about it. Like I'm still thinking about a lot of them. There is one episode that is directed by a woman, so I do hope that next season they have more people of color, more women, because I think those are interesting stories to tell in sci-fi and not always the same kind of thing over and over and over again. So I don't know if they're planning to do more, but I hope that they are because they're great. They're all really great. Have either of you watched any of them or part of them?
Actually, I haven't. But I'm looking at the trailer right now, and it seems straight up my alley. So this might be my next show, or at least show adjacent to everything else I'm watching currently.
Yeah, you can watch it in, I want to say, I watched it over the course of a day, just kind of off and on. So I want to say maybe if you really hunkered down, it would be like 2 hours. So it's really not a huge time sink. I really recommend... So I don't know if this is true, but what I have heard is that they are experimenting with the order in which they are presenting them, so that some Netflix users, I think, have a different order than what I had and maybe what some of the other people had, so I don't know what the actual correct order is. If I was to recommend a few episodes, I would recommend The Witness was great. Zima Blue is great. I think it's called Shapeshifters. That was one of my favorites as well. Three Robots. There's a lot of really good ones. There's some like really cute little funny stories, like really just charming little things. There's some kind of horror ones. There's some very violent and brutal and like very explicit ones. So there's a pretty wide range of stories to be told. So if you like sci-fi in any capacity, I would definitely recommend this because it's just, the animation is just so cool. It's just so good. That was part of why I really love The Witness, is because the animation is really, really, really awesome. So, yes, definitely watch those. It's a very easy thing to get through. So, I think that makes a dang podcast.
Yay.
Did we do it? Did we hit
did
everything?
it.
Did we do all the stuff? Now, there never needs to be another podcast ever.
Wait, no.
We have done it.
No. Next.
What?
In 2 weeks, right? That's what we do. We make another one of these.
Are you sure? Because I think we've really done it. Like,
we've perfected the art of podcasting. You're saying we've done it?
We've perfected the art of podcast. We've done it. I think no one can ever best what we have done here.
We've peaked. You can't say this. We're peaking right now. I can't go back to high school. We can't do this again.
Well, much like Shadows Die Twice, as do we in 2 weeks when we make another podcast, because we didn't actually make the most perfect podcast. But we're on the way there. I would say we're maybe one of the best podcasts in the known universe. Not to toot our horn or anything like that. But we'll see if we can really make it to that cosmic level status when we reign together again. So this has been the Greetings From podcast, obviously, because it's the most important podcast in the known universe. You can find us wherever podcasts are hosted, such as Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, all the other ones that I'm not going to name right now. You can send questions to us at greetingsfromcast@gmail.com. We love answering them. They don't even have to be about games. You can just ask us what we had for breakfast. We'll still answer it. I don't really care. You can visit us online at greetingsfrom.zone. You can follow us on Twitter at greetingsfrompc. My name is Rebecca Faye, and you can find me at Rebecca Faye. Olivia, where can they find you?
You can find me at LivJQ. Tyler, where can they find you?
You can find me swinging my sword at World Jumpin' on Twitter.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for listening to Greetings From. Our intro and outro music is an edited version of Deep Fried Space Food by Substitute Sandwiches. You can find a link to the song in the podcast description. You can listen to more episodes at greetingsfrom.zone. We are also on Twitter and Twitch at greetingsfrompc and on Facebook at greetingsfromcast. Please leave us a review with your thoughts on iTunes or Google Play. It really helps us. Be a space cowboy.